Okay, welcome to our Hess's Law Lab. Today we're going to be using our calorimeter and observing two different reactions. The first between magnesium and HCl, and the second between magnesium oxide and HCl. So what I'm going to do first is assemble my calorimeter. So I've got two styrofoam cups upside down, and I also have a thermometer to measure the temperature. So I'm going to start off by measuring my initial temperature. And remember that in order to measure the initial temperature, I have to add my HCl into my calorimeter. So I am required to measure 50 milliliters of HCl. So I'm going to pour 50 milliliters into this graduated cylinder and then pour it into the calorimeter. Okay, so I've got 50 milliliters of HCl, and that goes inside of my calorimeter. And I'm gonna leave the thermometer inside of the calorimeter so that I can observe my initial temperature. And in order to see the temperature, just like I would read any other thermometer, I'm just looking at the red bar. So I'm gonna let that sit for a bit. In the meantime, I'm gonna measure out my magnesium. So I have already cut out 1.5 centimeters of magnesium. What I'm gonna do is weigh it so that you have a mass to do your calculations. So I'm gonna put this weigh boat on the weigh scale, and I'm gonna zero it so that it does not affect my measurement. So once I put 1.5 centimeters of the magnesium on there, the mass comes out to be 0.04 grams. So that's what you should observe into your data table. And the initial temperature, I would say, is 25 degrees Celsius. Okay, so as soon as I am done measuring both my magnesium and my HCl, what I'm gonna do is now add this magnesium into the HCl. And the only thing that I'm gonna observe from there is this is my T2, or what the temperature becomes. So I'm gonna hold it so that I can immediately close it so I'm not losing anything. So drop it in and stop it there. So I can hear some fizzing. I don't know if you can hear that. And I'm just going to wait to see if the temperature is going to increase. And I'm going to keep doing this until I hear the reaction stop. So I can hear the bubbles being formed. I can hear a little bit of a noise. Once that stops, that tells me the reaction is done. So I should wait until then to observe what my temperature is. So I can see that the temperature is slowly climbing up. So remember, we started at 25. It's going up. We're gonna pause. You've heard, you probably don't hear the fizzing anymore, and you've probably noticed that the temperature has increased. So I would say, I'm just gonna turn this towards me, that the temperature is now 30 degrees Celsius. So that is going to be your T2. So that is all the information that you need for your reaction 1. And what I'm going to do is take this and dump this out into my waste beaker. I'm going to clean this up and come back to you for reaction number 2. All right, so we are back to do reaction number 2. I've cleaned out my calorimeter. I've dumped out any of the remainder of reaction number 1 in the waste beaker. I've measured out 1.01 grams of magnesium oxide and 50 milliliters of HCl. What I'm gonna do is mix these two together. So first of all, I need my T1. So I'm gonna do exactly what we did in reaction number 1 and pour my HCl into my calorimeter. Now I suspect that because this HCl has been sitting here for the same amount of time, it is going to have the same T1 as reaction number 1. So let's just give it a few seconds. I think it's about 25 degrees Celsius. So your T1 is 25 degrees Celsius. So I've measured out 1.01 grams of magnesium oxide. I'm going to do exactly what we did in reaction 1. Add this into my calorimeter. I'm going to do this very quickly and close the calorimeter so that I can catch the temperature change immediately. So I don't hear anything, but I see the temperature is jumping very quickly. And when you're doing this lab in person, you might notice that the temperature goes up and then comes down a bit. What I want you to write as your T2 is the highest temperature that it reaches. That is going to be your T2. Let's give it a few minutes. Okay, so it's been some time now, and we notice, as you can see, that the temperature is now 31.5 degrees Celsius. That is going to be your temperature for T2. All right, that's our lab.